Und wir sind wieder zurück hier auf der IAA bei Bridgestone und Webfleet und bei unseren Mobility Talks. Carla und Mariska haben uns gerade einen guten Einblick gegeben, wo der Trend hingeht in der Elektromobilität. Und jetzt wollen wir ein bisschen mehr ins Detail gehen, ein bisschen mehr die Dinge auf die Straße bringen. Denn es geht um Lösungen und um Reifen, die bei der Elektromobilität eine große Rolle spielen können. Und ich habe wieder zwei wunderbare Gäste mir eingeladen. Very warm welcome to Maurizio Stecco, General Manager, Commercial Product Planning, Bridgestone.
It's a pleasure. Good morning.
Good to have you here. And Sjors de Kruijf, Webfleet Head of Sales, Bridgestone Mobility Solutions. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
As I said, we just talked about a lot of e-mobility and the trends and where the travel will lead us. Now, we had a great example with Volta about the EV trucks, and we have a connection with them. Just to pick that up, Maurizio, from a Bridgestone tire point of view, what is the impact of e-mobility on tires?
Well, generally speaking, the electrification through batteries is increasing the load on the axles of the weight. More specifically, the possibility to allocate batteries along the chassis is increasing the load on the front axle. And we hear more and more from OEMs the request of higher load index tires on the front axle. The other impact that I would mention is on the different force and torque applications to the tires on the drive axle. Indeed, the electric engine is capable to provide high torque level at low speed, at low revolutions, and this is used during acceleration. But the great benefit of electric vehicles is also that they can recover the energy during braking. So even if in an internal combustion engine vehicle, normally the braking force is more shift to the front axle due to the load transfer, in reality on an electric vehicle engine, the need to recover more energy makes a partial shift of braking force also to the drive axle and therefore to the drive axle tires. So that means that the challenges for the tires fitted on the drive axle is big more than if comparison with combustion engine trucks. And this could bring higher wear if not counterbalanced with some specific technologies to mitigate that.
So there are different challenges to the tire when you're driving e-mobility. So as a fleet manager, you have to think a little bit differently. How can tires contribute to the EV operations, Maurizio?
Well, linked with the previous questions, I would say that two major contributions, of course, are tires with higher load index and with improved wear characteristics. By the way, speaking about load index, we have also to say that with higher load index, we give to the truck designers more flexibility in using all the degrees of freedom that the electric powertrain is giving to them in positioning the engine, in positioning the batteries and the electronics. There is also a third important component, maybe even more important for EV than for internal combustion engines, which is the rolling resistance. Of course, in an internal combustion engine truck, the lower the rolling resistance is, the lower the fuel consumption is during motion. But in case of an electric vehicle that's using regenerative braking, the lower the rolling resistance is, the higher is the amount of energy that the truck can recover during deceleration and braking. So this is indeed a major benefit that we can provide with low rolling resistance tires. We often hear about range anxiety when we speak about electric vehicles.
Yes,
we do believe with that low rolling resistant tires we can support to mitigate or eliminate this anxiety in the mind of our customers.
And with these details in mind, how does Bridgestone address these new challenges?
The reply to this question is embedded in the Enlighten technology package that we are developing. Enlighten is a set of technologies that will provide best-in-class tires with a substantial step up in terms of sustainability. And let me give some examples on that, because in the Enlighten technologies package, we are considering all the needs of the electric vehicles. So, for example, when speaking about wear, the technical challenge is to limit the slip of the tread. And in this case, we are developing low deformation patterns. We are using advanced shaping technologies like the 3D technologies, for example, as well as new technologies for compound. as regards the rolling resistance, we are using more and more higher stiffener patterns and higher stiffener patterns geometry, like the closed geometry. And we are developing also new technologies, not only for the cap compound, but also for the casing compound as well. And as regards the load, here we are concentrating more on casing technologies. Here we have developing and extending not only the current high durability technologies that we already have, but we are working specifically on the belt and bead area technologies to increase the load index. Of course, all of these performances up will not have any negative effect on the rest of the tire performances, while at the same time the Enlightened package will support us and will help us to substantially step up in sustainability and circular economy as well.
All right, let's get more specific here, Maurizio. Let's put the finger down. When we talk about trucks and buses, what are the options for a fleet manager in the lineup of Bridgestone? What to pick?
But of course, we develop and we will develop tires take into account the vehicle park evolution and customer needs first in order to provide the best balance in terms of cost and performances. And let me give also another example in this of what I mean by that. And I would address the UAP2, the urban all position to the city bus tire that we launched last year and is also showcased in our booth today. Because we have considered all the EV vehicles need for the development and the core development of this tire. For example, of course, higher load index to fit the tire in the front axle of the bus.
Right.
Improved wear characteristics to fit the tire on the drive axle of the bus. Low noise in order to ensure a smooth riding to the customers, and very low rolling resistance in order to ensure a much more efficient energy recovery. This is just an example, of course. We are monitoring closely with our partners, with OEMs, also the evolution of the electrification on the other trucks categories and bus categories. Our understanding in this moment is that for the short midterm, we will observe a high speed of electrification on all those categories that are somehow related to the inner city application, like last mile delivery, like waste collection, like inner city distribution. And for those, we are already considering the needs in our development plans and in our roadmap. For other truck categories more related to long haulage and long mileage, maybe it will take a bit more time,
right.
But we do see also in the IAA how the batteries technologies are evolving, how promising the fuel technology is. So it's just a matter of time that we will do see the expansion of electrification also to long haulage trucks. And on this, we are fully implementing in our plans and roadmaps all the tire features that we will need.
Thank you, Maurizio. It was a great insight in the technology as well with the tire business. We had now a great view about the tire point of view, and we're talking about fleet care here all the time. So Bridgestone and Webfleet working close together for the customer. Looking at the tire point of view from EVs was one part, but obviously the fleet manager has a lot more to think about. Sjors, before we dive into that, you do have an EV background, you told me, so you already worked with EV fleets in your former life, is that right?
Yeah, I've worked with EV fleets for quite some years now. Obviously also concentrated very much on public transport, bus operators. They tend to be very front runner in EV adoption all across. So I think the development of EV fleets really has a good background in the transport sector, but you see adoption all across right now, and it's for most companies it's not a question of if they will do it, but it's more like, okay, when are we going to make the transition to electric vehicles?
Right, and when we look at fleet managers, they have to think about picking the right tires, but their role will change. There's a lot other things they have to take care about. What is it that you see the fleet managers have to adopt or think about in future?
Yeah, so I think the role of a fleet manager is becoming more and more complicated with the rising come of EV fleets. For instance, if you look at the total cost of ownership of an EV, it's significantly different than calculating total cost of ownership for, let's say, your regular combustion type of vehicles. And of course, the tire component, it's a relevant component of your total cost of ownership. But with EV, there's a lot of more things that come to a fleet manager to take care of. I mean, fleet managers, they need to start thinking not only about the vehicles, but also about the entire ecosystem around the vehicles. So you need to look at your charging infrastructure. You need to look at your how you maintain your fleet. It's significantly different than a regular fleet. You need to look at how to prevent range anxiety from drivers. How do you deal with that? How do you manage driving behavior of your drivers? Because that all has an impact on the range that vehicles can drive, for instance. Just to name a few.
So there are many challenges. How does Webfleet maybe already now address these kinds of challenges?
Yeah, so we make things transparent. We try to aggregate data that enables fleet managers to use that data and make them into actionable insights. So for instance, again, tires is a core component of the cost of a fleet, but a battery component is also very costly. And for instance, by measuring state of health of battery, state of charge of battery, making sure your chargers are optimized every single time that a vehicle leaves your premises, and make sure that they can make the round that they need to make. It's very important to manage that and make sure that the data that is available is used for optimizing all those aspects.
So from a Webfleet point of view, does it matter if you have a combustion engine or an EV? Do we care if it's a diesel or gas or electric?
So we facilitate all types of vehicles in our platform. We aggregate data from all types of vehicles with all types of energy sources. Obviously, one of our ambitions is to become number one at EV, and that is also where we are investing heavily if it comes down to the development of our types of solutions. Enabling EVs to be visible in our platform, it takes a bit of a different approach, because there's a process, it's called canalization, right. And I don't want to get too technical here, but we basically technically tear down the vehicle and try to understand how a vehicle works. So you need to look at the brand, but you also need to look at the brand type. And even more sophisticated, you need to make sure that you understand the behavior of the battery, and that can even differ by production date. So you really need to understand the vehicle and how it's fabricated to be able to visualize all the data that is available. Most important data, for instance, is battery state of health. If we are able to visualize the performance of a battery, we can also advise customers how to prevent or how to extend the battery lifetime of a vehicle. Now, battery is one of the most crucial and costly components of an EV. So if you can extend that by 20%, that has a huge impact on let's say, your total cost of ownership.
I see. So when you do the first steps now, it doesn't really matter if you got all combustion engines and you bring in a few EVs. You can see all on the same platform in Webfleet, and you just learn step by step. Is that about right?
Yeah, I see it as a bit of a phased approach. First, it starts with the acknowledgement and the desire of companies to move away from, let's say, traditional types of vehicles and move into new types of vehicles, like EV types. We also need to make sure that the services that these companies are able to deliver does not go down by making this transition. So we need to be able to visualize the data to determine, okay, how much % of my fleet, right, is likely to also be serviced by EVs. So that's the first step. But as mentioned before, you also need to look at the infrastructure around it. You need to make sure that your charging infrastructure is up to date and also facilitates the ambition to move to EV. Smart charging solutions come in place. With the increasing cost of energy at the moment, it becomes also more important to charge your vehicles at those times at the day where it's most cost effective. So with smart charging solutions that we're also developing, right, you enable the customers basically to charge at those moments where energy is least effective. And then what I mentioned before, battery state of health, battery performance. Deep analysis of battery performance is really important to extend the lifetime and make sure that you have a healthy fleet with EV combined with current fleet.
So see, in the end it always comes down to gather the information, represent them to the fleet manager, and he can take care of all that matters to make his fleet as vivid and as healthy as possible.
Absolutely, yeah.
Last question. We saw one trend is e-mobility here at the ERR. What do you think, maybe to both of you, is another trend we will see in the next 4 years?
That's a good question. I think the trend for many companies is not only think about transition to EV, if it comes down to EV, but I think what is also a trend is that people or companies start to exploring their vision on sustainability.
Right.
And I think there's huge opportunities there. Sustainability is quite broad. It's not just about the fleet, but there's a huge opportunity to include fleets in your vision, your tactics to move to more sustainability. And look at the possibilities to decrease carbon or increase safe driving behavior by including fleets in vision and a mission to drive sustainability in companies.
Right, Maurizio, what is your feeling? We offer advanced tire solutions. Is the next trend more data, and more data?
Yeah, for sure, more data management, but I fully agree with Sjors that sustainability is and will be a key trend in the near future, linked with e-mobility, how e-mobility can help on sustainability and vice versa, how sustainability can fit with e-mobility. So indeed, I also think this will be a key trend in the short term as it is already now.
Thank you very much. I learned a lot. It was great insights on how to manage e-mobility, even now and in the future. Thanks for having you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you
very
much.
much.
It's a pleasure to be here.